into open session.
Second. Yes. Mr. Pappas? Yes. Mr. Girth?
Yes.
Mr. Jackson?
Yes, thank you. Welcome to the July 17th regular meeting of the Board of Township Trustees of Anderson Township. I would ask that you join me in the most important thing we're going to do tonight, and that's the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you.
Make a motion to adopt the agenda.
Second. Mr. Pappas?
Yes.
Mr. Girth?
Yes.
Mr. Jackson?
Yes. We are going to start this meeting with a public hearing on the 2015 preliminary summary tax budget. It's actually on the preliminary tax budget, right? Not just the summary portion. So, I will not, out of courtesy to our friends at Belterra, I will not refer to him as the one-armed bandit, but look for yourself, right?
I didn't put on a tie or a sports coat, so I can't get
Couldn't tie the tie?
Couldn't tie either. We do this every July by state law. We have to, and by the county auditor's consensus, we have to adopt a preliminary, as you said, preliminary, what they call it a tax budget, where we try to estimate what's going to happen next year. As you know, we have a hard enough time estimating what's going to happen next year. So what we did this time, and the administration, my assistant Debbie, and all the department heads got together mostly, and we took a look at our 2014 permanent budget, and we started tweaking that, trying to cut where we could. Obviously, we had some areas where we couldn't cut because our medical expenses are going up. We looked at some fuel costs. They've been pretty high this year, so we made some adjustments there, but we basically kept to what the budget for 2014 is, and we all know that we've historically come in under budget at the end of every year, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6%. So, but we use that as our guideline, and we had two areas where we increased the budget by close to $900,000. The total budget difference from the 2014 permanent budget is about $1 million plus, but the school district gets money, pass-through money from the township every year, and the values have gone up. They actually had a tax increase due to a levy that was passed a couple years ago, and that's been kicking in. So a good portion of that money goes from us to the schools. We're not spending it, we're getting it from the county. And then we are transferring some dollars in a few other funds that account for like $900,000 of about the $1 million that we are over the 2014 budget. So we kept most of the discretionary items in line with what they have been. Sometimes, in some areas, we have reduced those. But as we said, this is our best guess at what's going to happen next year. We always err on the side, we're very conservative with our revenue projections. I would tell you our revenue projections for this year are coming in better than what we had anticipated. We're always very conservative on our expenditures, but we allow our department heads to tell us what their needs are. If we think that there's a possibility that a project or needs are there, we will put that in the tax budget, and that is where we are right now. So I would need the board's approval so that we can send this down to the county auditor's office. Other than the tax budget, I think Lisa over the years knows it's one document, but there's also many forms that have to be filled out. You have to give a 4-year history, what happened in 2012, 13, 14, and then you have to project what happened in 2015. So there's a lot more work involved than just coming up with the numbers for 2015.
And Ken, the reason why we have to do a preliminary budget is state, right? The state.
Actually, the county auditor in our case requires us to do it.
Okay.
Not all county auditors in the state require a tax budget.
He basically wants us to justify how we're going to spend the money that he's going to collect. Because theoretically, you're not supposed to reserve any money, so you got to put this thing together. Ken, I did want to show because I've mentioned the summary budget, for those who really care to look at all the detail, there is a thing called a preliminary detail budget, which has every item and subtotaled and the whole 9 yards. And from this, then Ken and Debbie and the staff prepare the summary of that. I look at this a little differently than just a tax budget, though. I look at it as a working tool. This is the beginning target, and then from that, we know the worst-case scenario, and we can work backwards to determine how much we want to spend and whatever. For example, I think the last 4 years, the actual expenses have been very close in each of the last 4 years, and those numbers have definitely been at least 8% or more less than they had been through the 2009, 8, and 7. So it really is a good tool to work with.
It's actually a good tool and a good exercise, even though initially I objected to it when I first came on board, but it gets the department heads involved, and as you said, it gives us something to adjust from month to month, and by the time we get to March, hopefully we'll have it fine-tuned and we'll have a much better budget than we might have had.
March being when we approve the permanent budget.
Permanent budget, right. Do we have a motion to, we might as well move it forward, even though it's later on the agenda, to adopt the preliminary summary budget?
Yeah, excuse me, Mr. Jackson, if you want to close the public hearing first.
Oh, of course. Oh, you mean we have to ask people if they want to make a comment on it?
Yes, sir.
I forgot that part, didn't I?
Yes, sir.
Would anyone like to come forward to discuss this preliminary summary tax budget, either for it, against it, or any other comments? If not, we'll close the public hearing. How is that? Is that okay? All right. We'll close the public hearing, and I would ask that someone introduce a resolution to adopt the preliminary tax budget.
You done?
That's it.
All right. I move to approve the...
No, but I'm finished.
I move to approve the 2015 preliminary summary tax budget as presented by the fiscal officer.
Second.
Discussion?
Mr. Pappas?
Yes.
Mr. Girth?
Yes.
Mr. Jackson?
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks,
Thank you, Deb. Nice work. Not a lot of effort on your part to just sit there as I watched you suffer. Thank you.
Russ.
That's why we're thanking her.
Yeah, I was thinking her first, yes. Thank you. What's the deadline? When does it have to be filed?
Monday?
Monday. Okay, good.
Most jurisdictions do ask for an extension just because it gives them that other month to see what's happening, but we haven't in the past, so.
Good. Chief Ober, do you want to give us some recognitions here?
Sure. First thing I'd like to do is welcome everyone, friends and family. Pretty exciting evening, especially for the first individual who's already made a comment that he is retired and here on his own time. And he's the gentleman I'd like to talk about first. Paul, if you could come on up here, please. Paul started with us in 1987 as a volunteer, became a career firefighter in 1989, and also a paramedic. He later obtained the rank of lieutenant, and in 2003, battalion chief, the rank that he retired with yesterday. And during his career, he obtained his bachelor degree in fire science and safety technology from the University of Cincinnati. He also attended the Ohio Fire Executive class. And not only taking care of Shift 1 for the past 11-plus years, he also was in charge of our support division, which was over 40 vehicles, mechanics, and kept things going for us, as much as small equipment. And one of the last projects Paul helped both Administrator Earhart and I with yesterday, he attended a fire chief's meeting that was closed to the outside just to talk about the future of our communications. So he's done a great deal of work with that and been involved in a communications committee with Hamilton County. And also, he was a member of Command 400. That is a vehicle that would go out for disasters and allow the command staff of any given department to work in. Paul was one of the logistics people that would set it up. We would like to thank him for his 31 years of service and wish him the best in retirement. He's going to start traveling a little bit. And good luck, Paul. We thank you for your help.
Thank you for that standing ovation. Obviously, I'm excited. I get excited as each minute goes by. It's reality. It's something that you dream about. You don't know if that day's ever going to get here. But my employment with Anderson Township has been wonderful. I thank Township for the opportunity to be able to serve the community. I've made a lot of friends throughout the county and the township. Some will be missed very dearly. And I've been making my rounds and saying my goodbyes, but hopefully we run into each other. I do plan to stay in touch. I'd like to recognize my wife, Nancy, of almost 40 years of marriage, and we will be celebrating our 40th anniversary in Maui this year in September. And so we're going to be there for 3 weeks, so we're looking forward to that. And my son, who's a lieutenant on our department, who I will be keeping in touch with and finding out what's going on and keeping tabs with everybody. Because there'll be times where I'll be hearing those sirens. I don't live far from here, and I live in a township, and when I hear those sirens, I'll be wondering where the guys are going and what they're doing, and hopefully they'll be safe and be curious as to what's going on. Also like to recognize the 4 individuals, 2 lieutenants and 2 battalion chiefs that are coming up in ranks. All I can say is congratulations, men, and carry on. Thank you.
Thank you, Paul.
Thanks, Paul. With that said, as Paul alluded to, we've had, and mentioned at the previous meeting, completed our promotional process. And what we're going to do right now is ask each of the individuals to come up one at a time, say a little bit about them. They're going to do in their swear or oath. And then the family member is going to come up and pin the badge on them. So we'll start off with Sean Smith, who is going to replace Chief Cunningham as battalion chief. He started with us in 1989, and he's been a career firefighter with us for over 23 years. He made lieutenant in 1997. He also obtained his bachelor degree, I think, what, 18 years, Mel, was it? 19, okay. From the University of Cincinnati. We're proud of him for that. He's also a rescue specialist with the Ohio Task Force 1, that's the urban search and rescue team. He's a fire training instructor with our department, and as I mentioned, he's going to be the battalion chief in charge of support services. That's Sean Smith. Our next battalion chief is Mike Miners. Mike has been on since 1995, almost 20 years with our department, his career. He made lieutenant in 2003. He's also a fire training instructor. He is going to be in charge of Shift 1 and also in charge of training. Our next officer to be promoted is Bob Herlinger to the rank of lieutenant. Bob has 17 and a half years with our department. He also obtained his bachelor degree of fire science from the University of Cincinnati. Bob is an EMS and fire instructor, and he's also our EMS manager, handles most of our educational needs for our department. And our last candidate is Brian Carlson. Brian's been with our department a little over 7 years. He also obtained his bachelor degree in fire science. He also obtained his master's degree from Eastern Kentucky University, Safety, Security, and Emergency Management. He's a fire instructor, and he, along with Sean, is a hazardous material specialist for Ohio Task Force 1 Urban Search and Rescue. With that said, Ken?
Say a great-looking bunch and lunch nationals. You all, gentlemen, raise your right hand and repeat after me. I will administer you the oath of office. I repeat your name. Do hereby swear to uphold the Constitution of the United States. The Constitution of the State of Ohio. Policies and procedures of the Board of Township Trustees. Of Anderson Township. And to ethically and faithfully discharge the duties of my office. Congratulations.
If the family members would come up and put the badges on, please. You're welcome.
Mark, I don't know how good they are, but they're good looking.
They're very good. Thank you, President Jackson. That's all I have.
Thank you, guys. Okay. Moving forward, Representative Stoutberg would not be here for this evening for a legislative update. You don't have a report?
No, sir, I do not.
Lock that door.
Yeah, that's right. Give them a minute. Thanks.
Leave somebody.
Thanks for coming, guys. Appreciate it. Okay, now we're getting back to normal. Here we go. Was it something we said? I mean, do you have any suggestions? Oh, brother, here we go.
Okay. All you people in the back can move up to these empty seats.
Lisa, you want to come forward, or? Okay. Wow. Okay.
Paul's going to stay because he's retired.
Suddenly, there were none.
Okay.
Whoop-de-doo.
If we don't count press and staff, you're it.
You're it.
Oh, my. Okay.
Well, it was exciting while it lasted.
All right.
Charlie, you got a seat now. You have a seat now.
As I said, Representative Stoutberg is unable to attend. I didn't know if Mrs. Earhart had a report or not.
No, sir, he did not provide a report. They're out of session right now, so
Are
that
they
may
in
be...
session?
I don't think they go back yet.
That's what I thought. Okay. At every meeting, the board sets aside time for a public forum for the purpose of allowing any citizens who wish to address the board to come forward. We ask that you limit your remarks to an hour, hour and a half. Anyone who wishes to come forward and address the board, please give us your name and address and come forward now. That's it. Okay, with that, I will close the public forum and move on to trustee comments. If you all don't mind, I will start this thing.
Sure.
For those of you who don't know, the Hamilton County Commissioners have been petitioned to make a decision regarding increasing the sales tax by 1/4% for the purpose of funding repairs and/or renovations to Music Hall and to Union Terminal. They have three choices. One is they can, by statute, they can unilaterally implement that tax. Secondly, they could put that tax on the ballot, same as the stadium tax, same as the jail levy tax. If they are to put it on the ballot, they must do it by next Thursday, I guess. So it will have to be an action taken at their upcoming meeting on early next week. And the third action is no action. With that, I have sent the following letter, and I'd like to read it to you. They have asked, by the way, for input from residents as to their feelings about this thing. My letter says this: the purpose of this letter is to respond to your request for citizen input regarding a proposal to increase Hamilton County's sales tax by 1/4% for funding repairs and/or renovations to Music Hall and Union Terminal, both owned by the city of Cincinnati. There's little question that iconic buildings contribute to the character of Cincinnati. I applaud those who are working to preserve these structures and wish them nothing but success. I personally believe, however, that the saving of Cincinnati's icons is and should be the singular responsibility of the city and is clearly not an integral regional problem. If Cincinnati is committed to saving these buildings, city leaders should creatively find funding as they did for their streetcar project. My issue is not with the property's condition or the improvements cost. It is simply a matter of who should foot the bill. I question why outsiders are being asked to absorb the bulk of the cost. A funding methodology focused on user fees would be far more equitable, as the current proposal indicates that while 47% of anticipated sales tax revenues are expected to come from outside the county, at least 35% of the tax revenues would be paid by the 2/3 of Hamilton County's residents not living in the city of Cincinnati. Anderson Township, like other local governments and school districts, struggles with its own budgetary challenges, primarily due to state-level funding changes. While our Board of Trustees refrains from taking formal positions on tax levy ballot issues, I feel compelled to personally respond because I'm deeply concerned about adding to Anderson's residents' tax burden by having them fund other than those functions which are essential to our own community. A 3-week rush to judgment on this complex and expensive issue is not in the best interest of Hamilton County or Anderson taxpayers. A powerful lesson should have been gleaned from the angst which resulted from the stadium sales tax increase, followed by the subsequent failure of the jail tax levy. If Hamilton County taxpayers didn't wish to support a needed new jail, why would they seriously consider approving a fuzzy, last-minute icon tax? As you remember, the expanded taxing authority anticipated to be used in this action was voted by the state legislature for the express purpose of supporting the stadium construction and that ill-fated new jail, not every special interest group's pet project. I would strongly suggest that the county forego any sales tax increase, if for no other reason than to preserve the limited sales taxing authority it has within its purview, reserving said authority to ensure against any unforeseen emergency funding demands. It would be risky business for the Board of Commissioners to initiate a sales tax increase while the tenuous stadium fund remains in fiscal jeopardy. Because Anderson Township derives the bulk of its revenues from property taxes and none from sales or payroll taxes, we must focus on providing basic services while preserving and enhancing property values through sound, conservative fiscal policies. This responsible approach to fiscal matters has allowed us to achieve and maintain our coveted 3A Moody's credit rating. Fiscal responsibility teaches us to differentiate between wants and needs, and I believe that the proposal before you clearly should never be construed as a need. Sincerely, Russ Jackson.
I'd like to say that was very well said, and I agree wholeheartedly with every word you wrote in the letter. And I'd like to add, I'm especially in agreement with the time period that they've put the commissioners under, a 3-week rush to judgment. As a taxpayer, as a resident of Hamilton County, I clearly remember the stadium issue. Seems like that if people could go back and do that again, I wonder where that would end up. I'm pretty sure I know. And the issue, some of the cost estimates, personally know some people that are on the commission reviewing the cost estimates and what needs to be done to those 2 buildings. And those aren't even done yet. Those are still being reviewed, and I have a hard time. I don't like it when any government agency creates a crisis and then tries to fill a solution to that crisis in a short amount of time. It seems like the taxpayers are left at the short end of the stick. So I couldn't agree more with your letter, and I fully support it. I'd like to add my name to it if possible. And I thank you for writing it.
Thank you. Mr. Girth?
Yeah, I mean, I'll comment that, you know, these are iconic buildings, and I do think that these buildings are important to our region. There's people in Cincinnati that obviously use it, and there's people here in Anderson Township that use those buildings. I and my family are 5 of them. But I don't agree with the current structure that they have out. I do think that the city is getting off scot-free. I think their involvement in this project's $10 million out of the $337 million, and I think that's ridiculous, especially considering the fact, and you brought it up in your letter, that they were able to pull together $147 million in funds for this streetcar. So, right. Yeah, I mean, I think it is, it's something that needs to be reviewed further. So I hope that they do that.
Could I add one final thought?
Please.
If I'm not mistaken, the deed of these properties clearly states that the city of Cincinnati is the owner, yet they are coming to the county to bail out the city of Cincinnati when the city of Cincinnati is clearly displaying some, in my opinion, poor financial decisions. We haven't even addressed the fact, given the city's pension that everyone knows is hanging out there. So I'd like to clearly state that I think that more discussion, more review of this needs to go on before the county commissioner's knee-jerk reaction to maybe a small group of public pressure and put this issue on the ballot. I think at a minimum, more examination needs to be done to this issue.
The important thing is that everyone expresses their opinion to the commissioners in short order. As I said, they're going to be meeting Monday or Tuesday. What do they meet? Monday?
I think it's the 23rd. I'm not 100% certain.
So,
but it's on their website. It's on the county commissioner's website.
They don't have much time, so you've got to get the word out. You've got to get people to tell them what you think. It's just not a good proposal, and we have to do everything in our power to convince them to not take any action.
Needs further review.
A whole heck
Man,
of
a few words.
Further review.
There, I could have summed it up like that. Thanks again.
Good. Excellent. Thank you. Does anyone have anything else? No?
Nope.
Nope. Okay. With that, we'll move forward. You all remember Ken Dietz. He's still with us. Ken, you have some financial reports and appropriation changes, and
Yep. We have the financial reports for the end of June, and as I stated briefly, the expenditures are well in line with what we had anticipated, and the revenues are a little bit above what we had anticipated, so hopefully that'll continue through the rest of the year. I think it will. We do not have any appropriation changes, increases, or anything like that, so that's good news.
good.
That's all I have,
Excellent, thank you. That's the kind of report we like to hear.
except for Margaret's.
Law Director, Margaret Comey.
I don't have a formal report, thank you.
Thank you. Planning and Zoning, Paul Drury.
Good evening.
Hello, Paul.
Just one item under our department. As you know, we received a transportation alternative grant for the sidewalk on Wolfangle Road, and we've currently have gone through the engineering process, and we're finalizing the final plans for that sidewalk. We had an open house back in April, and as a result of the open house and also a walkthrough with our engineer, URS has submitted a contract modification for your review and for additional scope of services that wasn't included in the original. The changes include supplemental survey and right-of-way services for additional permanent easements, which is a result of the grant. Culvert video inspection, which was a request by the township while we were in the project to go ahead and inspect the infrastructure while we were there. And then the third one was a retaining wall analysis. Well, I shouldn't say many, but several driveways along that roadway have retaining walls, and in an effort to work with residents to make the project aesthetically pleasing, keeping consistent with what's there, and one wall in particular to hopefully reduce some grading requires an analysis to see if it's structurally stable. So those are the reasons for the contract modification. The cost for this would be $27,303, but is anticipated in the long run. It would be more expensive in the design, but in the long run, shorter in construction costs and easement acquisition costs. So there's a motion there for your consideration.
Do we have a motion?
I move to authorize the expenditure of up to $27,303 in TIF funds for additional engineering costs associated with the Transportation Alternative Program grant funded Wolfangle Road sidewalks to address unforeseen tasks not included in the original scope of work as approved by resolution number 13-0620-08.
Second.
Discussion. Paul, I have a question, and obviously these are things that have to be done. We could not have anticipated them earlier or done this review earlier.
The need for permanent easements and again, we're constructing the sidewalk on the east side. It was determined. We did an analysis of both sides during the preliminary engineering. The need for additional easements came after the second stage of engineering, and it was determined that additional easements, and these are not a huge area. It's a small easement, but it has to be a permanent easement for the grant. So, and there are many, there's an increase in the number of properties and easements needed on the east side. However, we felt that was the better design. So some yes, some no. It was just out of our control once you get further into the engineering, the details.
Just nice to know that they're not hidden costs, so therefore, would have been, I understand the easement part,
Yes.
but the culvert inspection and the retaining wall analysis.
The one retaining wall, in particular, when we did a final walkthrough just last month, and again, this was a result of our public open house, so it was to address some of the residents' concerns with the project. It's actually to reduce the impact on that property, but we do have to do an analysis of an existing retaining wall to make sure that the grading doesn't impact that wall.
It wouldn't change anything, it's just that
Right.
it would look as though we had tied all the ends together there.
Right.
So,
Right.
thank you.
Mr. Pappas?
Yes.
Mr. Girth?
Yes.
Mr. Jackson?
Yes,
Thank you.
thank you, Paul. Okay, Public Works Department. I'm sorry, Sheriff's Office. Corporal David Boyman is here. He looks like he's going to jump up from that chair and give us a long one, but I don't think so. Thank you for coming, David. Public Works Department, Richard Shelley. Good Lord. Okay. Chief Mark Ober, I guess it's, it must be you.
It's all about us, right? I just wanted to update the public, as I mentioned in the memo to the board. The state of Ohio has mandates for paramedics to be recertified, and which is about 90-plus hours every 3 years. And over the years, they've offered grant funding for both education and equipment. Our EMS division, under the leadership of Battalion Chief Fred Buop, with the assistance from the physical office, put our numbers together, and we were able to obtain that $4,250 grant, which we will be able to turn back and use for the mandatory training. So it's kind of nice for a change when there are stipulations that you have to do it, that the state has the funds available. We've applied for it, and we will continue to apply for it and put this to good use with some upcoming mandatory training.
Yeah, thank you for that
Okay.
good news, and please thank Battalion Chief Buop for us.
I will do so, and thank you.
Okay. Township Administrator, Vicki Earhart.
Yes, good evening. Ms. Parker has some updates for the board, the first 3 items on the agenda.
She didn't even get her name on the agenda this time. What'd she do wrong?
Well, as I hope everyone is already aware, we have Greater Anderson Days coming up in just 1 week. Starts a week from tomorrow and goes through Sunday evening, culminating in a fireworks show. We hope the attendance will be just as good as it always has been. We've gotten so much support from the community, and we hope everyone will stop by the township booth area. We're downsizing a little bit and going to experiment this year. So please stop in and let us know, any thoughts or questions or concerns you have about the township, and we'll be happy to look into whatever or follow up with you.
We're going to have a 40-page questionnaire this time?
No questionnaire this year.
All right.
This is the first year in a very long time.
How are we going to get that seatbelt grant that we always get?
That ended quite a few years ago.
Yeah.
But we will be next to the Forest Hills Local School District and the Anderson Township Park District.
Yeah.
So all of the government agencies that serve the residents will be located together this year.
So it'll be a one-stop shop.
It will be a one-stop
All right.
shop.
Another effort of collaboration. Nice.
Definitely, yes. Just wanted to update the board. Our electricity aggregation enrollments continue to slowly climb up. We're up to about 1,200 residents, and that's about 100 new enrollments in the last 2.5, almost 3 months. So the pace has slowed down. That was expected, but we'll continue to beat that drum and get the word out periodically, whether it's the newsletter, the website, whatever means we can get the word out. That program is still available, and people can still get in on what is probably going to be a good deal, just because electricity prices are predicted to go up and up till the end of this year and plateau, but a lot of that will depend on what kind of a winter we have, how steady that plateau remains. So if anybody has any questions, call the township main line, and we'll get you hooked up to where you need to be.
Susan, did the Duke folks give you any indication of what kind of percentage of participation we should have looked forward to?
They did not. They said every community is so different in that regard. I can tell you, in speaking to my contact with Duke Energy Retail, he said that a lot of folks in Anderson are already in pretty good contracts, whether it be with Duke or another supplier, that this area had been offered some pretty good rates as far as our region. And from what they could tell, the pricing had been pretty good for the customers in Anderson. So that may be why we're not seeing more enrollments than we are. However, as people's contracts with their supplier, as those expire, we could expect to see a tick here and there on those enrollments as people compare prices, and sometimes Duke will have a better price and sometimes they won't. So much of it is market-driven, and it changes every couple of days. There's new pricing. It's a lot like the stock market. You just have to stay on it to see what the best pricing is going to be.
It seems like we have not been inundated or flooded with these solicitations in recent months like we were there for a while. So.
Right. I'm sure word has spread that we partnered with Duke. I'm sure word has spread also that we have a 24-month agreement. So I would say about this time next year, we'll probably start getting some more ads, because they'll know that partnership is going to expire. And, you know, that's fine. If they want to throw in a quote, that's great. The more competition with this, the better for the residents. So this time next year, we'll gear up and maybe take another look at what pricing is out there, and see which way we want to go from there.
Good work. Thank you.
My last item is with regard to our ongoing push to save money and save a dollar here and there where we can. One of the ways that we've been able to do that is to join with other Ohio townships. In the Ohio Township Association, their group rating program for our workers' compensation premiums. And basically all that is a number of jurisdictions gather together, and they're treated as one entity, and as with a lot of things, you get better pricing when you buy as a group. You spread that risk across all of those members. And as such, we have participated in this for a number of years. One of the things that is required for this is that you have what's called a third-party administrator. We have used the Frank Gates Company for years, and we've had a very good working relationship with them. We've gotten a lot of legal representation and legal advice from them that has saved us real dollars. So, to cut to the chase, by participating in the group rating program, we're going to save $47,802 off of our premiums, and that's including the administrative fee that we pay to Frank Gates. So even though the total savings would be higher, even if we pay that fee, which we're required to do anyway, we're still going to have a 23% savings over what we would be paying if we were out buying this coverage on our own. But each year, I need the board's approval to renew that relationship with the Frank Gates Company. So at the bottom of your memo, you should have a motion that will authorize that payment and will renew that contract.
Yes, I move to authorize payment of $24,240 to the Frank Gates Company for Anderson Township's participation in the Ohio Township Association's Workers' Compensation Group Rating Program for the policy year of January through December 2015.
Second.
Any discussion?
Mr. Pappas?
Yes.
Mr. Girth?
Yes.
Mr. Jackson?
Yes.
Thank you.
Suzanne, if I may, just to, in case you haven't seen it, there is a group out of Columbus of small businessmen who have been advertising big time on TV regarding a dispute with BWC, saying that they overpaid BWC from, I think, 07 to 11, and their claims that those overpayments put them some of them out of business. They got a court decision to support a payment, a considerable payment, several $100 million from BWC, but now that that's gone to a higher court, the higher court reversed that decision. But when you see it, they really don't explain what it's all about. So it has nothing to do with us. It's quite interesting.
But it'd be interesting to follow in case down the road it does have implications for the public sector coverage.
If you see it. Well, now you'll see it, because the commercial actually is addressing to the governor to do something about it, which he obviously can't do since it's in the court system. So
I don't know.
okay. Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
Thank you. There are 3 items arising from executive session discussions, the first of which is a recommendation, a motion before the board, which would authorize an easement for utilities through Duke Energy for property that's owned by the township on the west side of 8 Mile Road near the intersection of 8 Mile and State Route 32.
I move to authorize a grant of easement pertaining to township property to Duke Energy Ohio Incorporated for electric, utility, and/or telecommunications facilities.
You want to read that, the whole thing? No? Second.
I think that's a no.
I think so.
Any discussion? By the way, this is, doesn't say it, but this is green space
Yes.
property.
Mr. Trappis?
Yes.
Mr. Girth?
Yes.
Mr. Jackson?
Yes.
Thank you. The next item is a motion that would authorize the township administrator or her designee to acquire property in an amount not to exceed $15,000, including due diligence.
So moved.
Second.
Discussion?
I don't know. I guess I'm, yes.
Mr. Trappis?
Yes.
Mr. Girth?
Yes.
Mr. Jackson?
Yes.
Seen it done like that.
Thank you.
That's why I asked.
The last item for the record, Mr. Pappas recused himself. It did not participate in executive session discussions regarding this last item, which involves property owned by the township at 7887 Beachmont Avenue. There is a resolution before the board which would authorize its disposition due to the fact it is no longer needed for public purpose.
I move to adopt a resolution authorizing disposition of real estate.
Now, this one we think you ought to read.
Am I getting ganged up on?
Yes.
Yes.
you are.
Do we have a second? I will second, that's right. You
I can't do anything.
Yep, sorry. Second. Any discussion?
Okay, Mr. Pappas? Abstain.
I abstain.
Mr. Girth?
I like to say. It's the
Yes.
first time I've said it.
Jackson?
So
Yes.
It's cool.
Thank you. That's all we have for the board this evening.
Thanks, Vicki.
Thank you. I would remind you all that our next regular board meeting is Thursday, scheduled for Thursday, August 21st, 2014, at 6 p.m. If you have any questions, call 688-8400. And with that, I would ask for a motion to adjourn.
I move to adjourn the meeting.
Second.
Mr. Pappas?
Yes.
Girth?
Yes.
Mr. Jackson?
Yes. Thank you all for coming.
Thanks, everyone.